Oh, so Mr. Chairman, Yvette is not going to be able to attend until maybe 10:30 if she's able to attend at all.
Okay.
So she will be late if she's able to attend at all. She had a conflict that came up.
Okay. Perfect. Not perfect, but thank you. So it is 9 o'clock, and I think we have everybody else in the audit committee, Monica.
Except Salvador Tallarico.
Except that, okay. Is Alexa still attending from the law?
Alexa is not attending, and I have been in contact with Greg a couple of times to see if he has a representative from the law department, and he was not able to provide one before this meeting.
Okay. So why don't we give Sal, if it's okay, just another minute or two.
Hey, Monica.
Yes.
Hi, it's Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Can you make me a co-host on this so I can start your stream?
Can I make you
A co-host so I can start
okay?
your
So
stream?
walk me through that.
Click the participants button.
Participants.
Yep, you'll see do it, and then right click and make co-host.
Right click on your name.
The do it name, yep.
Hold on. Oh, DOIT.
Yep.
Okay. Right click. Oh, more.
There's no options. Yeah, more.
Make co-host, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see that Sal joined. He's muted, so Morning County Executive. So are we good to go, Monica?
I do believe so, Tom.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
We can do.
Perfect. So I'd like to call to order the meeting of the audit committee for March 24th. And again, I want to thank everyone for allocating time to attend the meeting, and thank whoever allows these meetings to be done via Zoom. I know it's selfishly, it's a better and cheaper way for me to attend these meetings. So item 2 is the roll call.
Okay, calling roll, Audit Committee Chairman Michael Abuzarol.
Here.
Keith Libman.
Here.
Trevor McLear.
Here.
Salvador Tallarico.
Here.
County Fiscal Officer Michael Chambers.
Here.
And County Executive Armin Budish.
Here.
Okay.
Great. Next item, public comment. So I don't know if Monica, is anybody from the public who wants to comment on anything on the agenda?
No one has contacted me by the deadline, which was 8 o'clock this morning, and I did not receive any emails prior to then.
Okay, perfect. Item 4, the election of the chair. So as everybody I think is aware, at the first meeting of the year, the audit committee needs to elect a chair for 2022. So I think we start with nominations, and then I think a motion to approve, if I understand that.
I'll nominate Michael Buzerall.
Second.
Any other any other nominations first? All right. So there's a motion and a second. So we just take a roll call vote, or how do we go from here?
It's roll call. So Tom, can you?
Okay. Michael Abuzarol.
I agree. I approve. Or
Okay. Keith Libman.
In favor.
Okay. Trevor McLear.
Yes.
And Salvador Tallarico.
Yes.
Okay.
So I get just thanks to the audit committee for voting me to this position and your continued support for another year. Item 5 is the approval of minutes. So I think we want to ultimately approve we need a motion to approve the minutes, but I think we're going to have a little bit of discussion about the meeting preparation. So this had come up at the last meeting. Monica was asked to come up with an alternative. I think she has an alternative that she'd like to present. So maybe we should do that first, Monica, and then approve the minutes.
Totally up to you. But the proposal, if you'd like me to go with that, is up on the screen.
Sorry.
So would you like me to move forward with that, or would you like to approve the minutes first?
Why don't you go forward with it? Go forward with
Okay.
the proposal first.
So the proposal for the meeting minute preparation is that the audit committee consider following the meeting protocol adopted by the Kyogre Clerk of Council, wherein the meetings would be live streamed and the live stream recordings would serve as an additional public record for the meeting, along with a written summary of the meeting that closely follows Robert's Rules of Order, wherein the body of the minutes are brief and record actions that occurred, including all main motions and who they were made by, motions that bring a new question before the meeting, the final wording of any motion adopted or disposed of, including any debates or amendments, and if this is appropriate, information about the vote, including the type of vote and what kind of ruling there was, secondary motions, notice of motions, all points of order, including any appeals, any disorderly conduct. The words used must set forth a future precedent. DIA will maintain transcript-like notes to provide the audit committee chair for his use and subsequent preparation from the meeting. And what you have before you is a more abbreviated version of the minutes. The original body of minutes, if we were to do it the way we had done it previously, which is really more like a transcriptive way, was several, like I think it was like 20 pages or more. So this is definitely a more condensed version, and I think it would help those to really just get a good gist of what the meeting was about.
So the meetings are going to be recorded moving forward, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and this meeting's being recorded.
Yes, and this meeting has to be recorded according to the legislation that allows us to do remote meetings. One of the provisions was that it had to be live streamed and give the participants an opportunity to view. Give the public, excuse me, an opportunity to view.
Were we meeting in person outside of county council? Is it the practice to record all committee meetings?
Yeah, most committee meetings are. Oh, you know what? We don't have Mark. Is Mark Munson on?
I saw him earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm here. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, most committee meetings are streamed and recorded. However, and I checked with Mark, that's why I thought about him. This committee does not have to do that. It's definitely a voluntary thing for this committee.
Well, my only concern is inhibiting candor in discussion of topics that recordings live forever and can be used for purposes not originally intended. So I do have some concern, but if this is relatively standard practice, I can overcome my concern.
It is relatively standard practice, and it does go with the counties as well as the overall general government, where they're trying to increase the transparency to the public.
Yeah, this is Trevor. I'm okay with this. We've been doing this at council, I think, really since the new form of government. The Board of Control also does this. We record and live stream our meetings. Most of the other committees, like our equity committee that the county executive and county council created, they live stream and record those meetings. So this is common, I would say, through a lot of county departments and agencies. So I think this is what we should be doing.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would add as part of kind of the minute prep for each item, I think the minutes would also say like who presented the item. It doesn't go into what he or she was saying, but then it'll say discussion, ensure,
Correct.
so it'll give a little bit more than what's on here, I think. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, it does. That's what it says. Where in the body the minutes are brief. And what you see there is just, it includes that stuff, but you are exactly right. It would say who presented and what action was taken. So it's very action oriented.
I have a question.
Yes,
May I ask it, Mr. Chairman?
sure, absolutely.
Okay, I thought that the purpose for going to a more streamlined minutes was because of the amount of time it was taking our auditor and our audit group to prepare minutes. And so this was the idea to provide more of a Robert's Rules summary type of thing. So my question is, why are we still then at the end saying DIA will maintain transcript-like notes when I thought the purpose was to avoid having to do that?
So I'll answer that question because so in my capacity as the chair, the streamlined minutes that are being proposed here doesn't, in my opinion, provide enough of the content that allows me to make sure that, follow-up items or other important discussions that are occurring at the meeting, that I'm remembering those from one meeting to the next. So those are just being provided to me for purposes of my role as the chair. I would also think I would also think moving forward, if I wasn't chairing the committee, but I was on the audit committee, I would actually prefer the more detailed notes to help me better understand, what it is that we should be doing actually as a committee moving forward. So what I didn't want to do was have to re-listen through a 3-hour tape to make sure that I understood all the content that was necessary for me to understand based upon what was transpiring at the meetings.
And
so-
that's fine. Yeah, I thought that was fine. Then why go through all this other stuff? I mean, it just seems like we're doing 2 sets of work rather than one or the other.
If I may address that. So it is going to cut us out a significant amount of work. What I had described and told the committee is I spend a significant amount of work paring down those transcript-like notes to get them in a format that would be presentable as minutes. And so with this, the basic, he's going to get the raw notes. He's going to get what Tom actually transcribes during the meeting, and with just some review by Josh. Whereas before there were 4 sets of eyes on the minutes, and it took me so if the document was 24 pages, I would do a lot of work to try to get it down to below 20, to 17. It took a lot of my time. So this will definitely save time still, whereas he's able to meet the chairman's needs by just giving him Tom's pretty much raw transcript-like notes without me having to really put them through a good extensive review process and try to pare it down to where it is reasonable as much as possible from a length perspective.
So it would take you more time to pare down 24 pages to 17 or 18 than it will take you to provide the transcript-like notes and all these other things that we're now asking you to do?
Yes, because the transcript like notes, if we do our minutes like the council does them, those will take, Tom will do it, and it'll take me maybe 2 hours, if that, to review. Whereas before I would basically spend quite a few, like it would be a couple of days, over a couple of days, I would be going and just calling through it, trying to par it down. So it took a lot of time to try to abbreviate those minutes down to, so that they wouldn't be so lengthy and that they would, accurately reflect, since we were kind of giving very much, a lot of detail, they would accurately reflect. So it took a lot of my time. It really did.
Okay, if you think this will save you time
It definitely will.
and this answers Mike's needs, then fine.
Yeah. I think it's a win-win.
So I don't think we don't need a motion to approve the revised minute.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
This is Mark. Just wanted to follow up kind of on what the county executive was saying. We're talking about creating 3 public records. The minutes will be the official documentation of the action that the committee takes and document in the meeting for public purposes of the Public Meeting Act. But the recordings then become a public record, and the transcript like notes will become a public record. So I just want to make sure that we're maintaining those in accordance with a retention schedule that applies to those records. I don't know where the recordings are warehoused or who maintains those, but if we don't have a retention schedule, we need to maintain them indefinitely. And I just want to make sure that we're preserving them or disposing of them in a way that matches our retention schedule.
So Ricky Boyer's online. He's the one that is responsible for the magic behind the recordings for all of the county's boards and council meetings. And so he's the one that will be managing the retention and how that gets, saved and all of that.
And can we confirm that, that there's a retention schedule that applies and that we're fulfilling that retention schedule? Jeremy, I see you're.
Yeah, so this is Jeremy O from IT. We have the retention schedules in the Zoom recordings. The retention schedule for the public record would be that of the retention schedule of the agency or department that it comes from. So Monica, if you or the audit committee has a retention schedule for these specifically, then we can meet that retention schedule. If not, then it would roll up under the other retention schedules for general counsel and committee notes, which has a specific time frame. Right now, due to the pandemic, we have been keeping all recordings indefinitely.
And Jeremy, to answer your question, to my knowledge, we do not have a specific one for this. I believe we do follow the county schedule.
Okay, so we'll take that note. Again, we can make sure everything is stored in accordance to the current county schedule. And that's what everything currently is set to. And then, there are other ways to keep additional copies of the recordings as well.
So Mark, to talk about the 3 different documents. So before there were several different. So we have always had to do these transcript like notes. And like I said, then I would par them down. So if the transcript like notes are something we need to maintain, that's exactly what Tom takes every meeting as the secretary. And so if we need to retain those, we can. We just basically have, that's the only way we were able to do minutes, is to take kind of the transcript like notes. Now, I do know in the past I had talked with Bobby, who used to take this, and she said she used to do shorthand, and that would be the minutes. That's something we can consider going forward if we'd like to try to get somebody like her back to do that. But right now it's just Tom, and he takes really great notes. But if that needs to be a public record, then we'll have to find a way to do that as well.
Yeah, from the way I understand it, those those notes that Tom takes would be like a transient record that were then distilled into the minutes. But now we're talking about the chairman using those notes, and that would transform them from a transient record into a more official public record.
Okay, okay.
How does all this fit with when we go into executive session? Is there a recording of executive sessions, and does that get into the minutes, into the transcript like notes? What is the process of an executive meeting?
My understanding is that the executive sessions do not get recorded.
There's no obligation to record them. I would suggest we don't record them voluntarily. The minutes need to reflect the topics that were discussed in executive session, but
And
that's the extent
Mark-
of our open meetings obligations.
Mark, and who was in, I believe the minutes also have to reflect who attended the executive session.
Right, right. Yeah, the audit committee invites.
Mr. Chair, question. Monica, you just mentioned that it had been the practice in the past to have a stenographer take the minutes. Is that an option of just having a court-like situation? Stenographer takes the minutes and however they get transcribed. Now we don't need a recording and we've got a full transcript, just like a courtroom. Is that not an option, or is that prohibited?
I would have to look into that. I'd have to look into that further.
A tremendous amount of time off of your office. Now, Michael, is chair, that may or may not be useful to you because it would be 3 hours of transcript, but you can scan through that a whole lot faster than a than a recording.
That would still be a lot of additional work for me. I mean, the
Okay.
ideal thing for me would have been simply to have Tom do the transcript, within a couple of weeks after the meeting, have the format of the minutes that we had previously, which had enough detail for me, provided after Monica's review. So at least I know that, what I'm reading has gone through the due diligence of the review, but that seemed to be an onerous timeline for Monica and her team. So that's why we're coming up with this alternative.
The court reporter would also cost us additional money. And I mean, I don't think we need a court reporter doing these transcripts. I really like having the recording. It's never of who said what, where were the notes taken wrong. I think it's a good practice from a transparency perspective. And it does fit in line with the majority of the other county boards and commissions and council.
And my suggestion would be we move, if the chairman is happy with this and the director is happy with it, we move forward with it. If after a few meetings, it's not working the way it was intended, this isn't in the county charter, we can change it.
And I'm good with that as a suggestion. So just to kind of get back on the agenda, do we need a motion to approve this modification, or we don't need a motion for this, right? I mean, we need a motion to approve the minutes, but Mark, or do we need a motion to approve the modification?
No, it sounds like there's consensus. There's no objection to adopting this as a formal action, but I think there's consensus that this is a practice to adopt.
Okay. But we do need a motion.
Unless Monica might feel more comfortable with an official motion. Monica, I don't know if you have an opinion on it.
I would feel more comfortable. That way we have the directive and it will be reflective in the minutes.
So moved.
Second, Trevor.
So all in favor of approving the revised proposal for meeting minute preparation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? All right, great. So we also need a motion to approve the minutes from the November 30th, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Second, So I guess I second it. So all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So I think I want to just stick with the agenda and go into executive session. So all meetings of the Cuyahoga County Audit Committee are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings Act. However, the committee may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, the committee confers outside of the hearing of the public, but may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All final decisions are made in public. The committee would go into executive session this afternoon to discuss the employment of a public employee, namely their performance evaluation and timesheet approval. So is there a motion to go into executive session for these purposes?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor of going to executive session, say aye.
Aye.
We gotta
Need to do a roll call.
Oh, okay.
Audit Committee Chairman Michael Buzerall,
Approved.
Keith Libman,
Approved.
Trevor McLear,
Yes.
Salvador Talarico.
Yes.
So the folks that go into executive session would be the voting and non-voting members of the audit committee and Mark and Brendan, and I think that's it. Just anybody from legal at this point.
Okay. Let's make sure I got everybody. Okay. Okay. So. Sal, you need to go into executive session. Did you see it come up?
Monica, are you on?
Yes, Yvette, I am. Would you like me to put you into the session?
Thank you.
Hold on. Hello. Give me one moment, ma'am. Okay.
Monica? Monica?
Yes, ma'am.
It's Yvette. Can you put me back in the room and can you join us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yvette, you just need to join. You're in there. You just need to go back in.
I don't have a button to press.
Okay, let me take you out. Hold on. Oh, it won't let me. Let's see. How can I do this? Because basically it's telling me you're in the room,
The only button I
but
have
you're
to
not
press is-
joined. So
Yeah.
can you go down to the bottom of your screen?
Breakout rooms, got it. Join
Yeah.
breakout room, got it. I'll see you in
Okay.
there.
There you go. Sorry about that. I apparently hit the wrong button.
Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion to exit executive session?
I don't know if we need to do that. We don't need a motion to come out, do we?
No.
You don't need one. There's no legal problem with doing it, but you don't need one.
Okay. So we're reconvening the meeting of the committee and now back on the record. So I think we need a motion to for what we discussed in executive session.
So, Mr. Chairman, is our understanding that the payroll system has changed recently. So the committee would like to receive a copy of the Director of Internal Audit's timesheet at the same time it's submitted for processing on a weekly basis. In addition, the committee would also like to be copied on all time off requests by the Director of Internal Audit.
Second, is that was in a motion format? I think.
Yes, yes.
So I'll
Second.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the motion as presented by Sal, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, so we are way behind on the agenda. So Monica, bear with me. I'm gonna bounce around and to the other folks, or there's something I should take. I got some ideas, some of the things we should defer, but I'm just gonna start bouncing around the agenda. Item 7, the approval of the Audit Committee 2022 meeting schedule. So I think that's in your meeting packet. I think it's been coordinated with everybody. So we want a motion to approve this, Monica? Do we need a motion to?
Yes,
approve
sir.
this?
Yes, sir.
So,
So moved.
okay. So all in favor of approving the proposed Audit Committee 2022 meeting schedule, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So nobody opposed it, right? Everybody's in favor of it?
I think I made the motion and I'm pretty sure Keith seconded it, right, Keith?
Yes.
So all in favor of approving the calendar, say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Sorry, I'm trying to go quick. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for making that clarification. We appreciate it.
Monica, have the Outlook invites been sent for each of those dates? So
No, I will send
those.
those. I will send those out immediately after.
Thank you.
Mhm.
okay. So item 8A, the member reappointment. So Yvette's term was up December 31st, and I personally are hoping that Yvette is going to be reappointed for the rest of her life for this committee. But I'll take 4 years. So I don't know if there's been any progress on that or.
I twisted Yvette's arm and she agreed reluctantly. That's joking. She agreed to serve another term. So I think that's in process of being submitted to council.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Looking forward to working with you, Yvette, for the rest
Happy
of
to
your.
serve.
Item 8B, the follow-up items from the fourth quarter meeting. I'll turn that over to Monica.
Yes. One moment. Let me get it up on the screen. Ooh. One moment. I'm trying to get it to my. Here we go. Okay. Gee. Oh, okay. I'm seeing it. Hold on. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. All right. So I'll go through these really quickly. Fiscal office, the bank reconciliation, that's going to be agenda item 8C if we so choose to go over that. However, Lee has provided an update recently to the full committee. So we may be able to just, go from there. In terms of the next one, the prosecutor's office, Mark, the audit committee request for the jurisdictional review. A subcommittee was formed. We did meet, and that's also agenda item 8D. If we wish to cover that today, we'll do a really brief update on where we are with that. The committee to discuss, address concern relative to audit coverage transparency. That will be covered when I talk about the report, when I cover the audit plan report for the year. We did do some coverage percentages so that the committee can now see what coverage ratios we have in terms of what our resources are able to cover in terms of our audit universe. Committee to address recommended revision to Kyogre County Charter. That was to be included in this agenda in this first meeting, and it is on the agenda. And I will talk about that, but really briefly, it's just a recommendation that I work with law on the feasibility of the council action. And that's item 8H. Proposal relative to revisions for the format and preparation process for meeting minutes. We've gone through that already. Formation of subcommittee to address audit jurisdiction. That was discussed just a few minutes ago. Audit committee requested presentation from the OIG relative to their role and responsibility, particularly relative to ethics compliance. That has been deferred at the request of the chairman due to the constraints of the meeting time. So we will hopefully be able to put that on the agenda for next meeting. Audit committee member reappointment. We just heard the wonderful news that Yvette will be joining us again for another 4 years. And then review of the OIG loan development update report by DIA as a follow-up to inquiry made at the COIT presentation. So I have received the report. I am working currently with the new interim IG on us understanding that report and ensuring that the items have been addressed from the previous report. So that is actually to be continued. We are in progress of working with them on that. They had a deliverable that they needed to get out. So we will be working, we will have more time to work with them after this meeting.
Thanks, Monica. Any questions on the follow-up items? All right. Next item, I do want to spend some time with the bank reconciliation. Lee, if you can just give an update of your written update and then see if there's any questions from audit committee members.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so the last update that I gave you is basically, as everyone is aware, we went back through and had to reconcile due to the auditors when they were here finding an item that was listed on our bank reconciliation as an outstanding item, and it was actually posted. So we went back through the team. I had the team go back through and re-reconcile all of 2020. Most of 2020 is complete. There are 3 major accounts that are still outstanding, which is the key main operating account, the key accounts payable account, and the key payroll account. We're almost done reconciling the key payroll account for the year. And we haven't begun, we have begun with the main operating account, but we're not too far into 2020. We found part of the $14 million that was listed as reconciled, but I'm not comfortable sharing that result until I get a better handle of where that is. So just to suffice it to say, we are not there yet. Some of the challenges that we've been facing, as everyone knows, was mainly with the system. When we switched over to the M4 system, we didn't have the subject matter expertise to, I guess, effectively operate the system. We have had a consultant. We brought a consultant on board. They didn't start until like the end of basically the last week of September. Since that time, we have been having meetings with they're called G-Force, with G-Force, the IT department, and the Treasury department. The G-Force team, they instructed us that the setup of our CTM system, as well as the cash books and GL interface, as well as the way the functionality, the way we were utilizing it to help us reduce manual entries and prevent erroneous postings, was not working correctly. We have been working with them since to get this issue ironed out probably since the beginning of January. We didn't realize it was as big of an issue as it was with our IT team. So hopefully we'll just keep chugging forward. As you know, a lot of our IT team is working on the payroll, so we haven't had, we're not moving as fast as we had hoped to move, but we are making progress. And we also lost a resource. We had we thought we were in a good place because we had two resources working on our bank reconciliations. One of the people have since left. We're working to rehire in that position. So at one point we had an all hands on deck, which meant like all of our available accountants were working on a piece of the bank reconciliation. That's why we were able to get as much as we got through up through 2022 reconciled as far as we did. But because we're right in the middle of audit, most of that team's responsibility is financial reporting. So we're in the process of hiring some additional staffing, as well as bringing on some temps to assist us with the bank reconciliations. I will pause for a minute to allow questions to be asked and then give some more updates as needed.
Keith?
I just want to be sure I'm understanding, because I'd been under the impression for some time that we were reconciled to within $2 million, and that was a relatively steady state difference. Am I now understanding that that's not the case? That the unreconciled differences could be quite a bit greater?
Correct.
I think that's
So
what you
when-
said, but I just want to be sure I understood that.
So when we did not realize it until the auditors came in and did an audit and they start testing the actual transactions. So they found 3 transactions. One was a large one, which is the $14 million that I referenced. Our system showed that transaction was unreconciled. And has to do with the system issue. So it showed, that means it did not find a reconciling item posted to the bank system. When the auditors went through, hence the need for us to go back and do a manual reconciliation process, because there was a disconnect between the 3 pieces of the current system that we have. We have something called cash books. Of course, we have the general ledger system, and then our reconciliation model is called CTM, Cash Treasury Management. So there was a disconnect in the system, which GForce is helping us going forward. So there will not be these, I guess, to prevent these erroneous mismatching or false reconciliations, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yes.
Yeah,
So yes,
we're
relying on
$14 million is a very large number.
that it is.
Is this a transaction that we're having trouble tracking, or is this a series or a system of about smaller transactions that total to $14 million? I just have to tell you, I'm having an incredible
correct. So the way
my brain around not understanding.
Right. So the auditors found, so the way that the bank transactions post, which was a problem as well, and we didn't realize this until we found this transaction. So something might post on the bank as $14 million. It shows up on our books on the general ledger system as a series of maybe 52 transactions making up $14 million. So one of the things that some of the things that we thought we had in process was that it would look at a reference number on the bank side, and it would match something on our system side and match it to say that, yes, these 52 transactions on the GL side equals the $14 million on the bank side. So when we say it's $14 million, it sounds like it's one transaction, but that one transaction that's on the bank side is made up of numerous transactions on the book side. So this is one of the issues that GForce is helping us and giving us recommendations of best practices, what other entities are doing to help alleviate that. So one of the things that they suggested is which it sounds like common sense, but obviously it's not. When you submit a bank transaction, you need to have the detail on your general ledger match that. So if we do a deposit on our books, and we show that batch as tying, equaling $250,000, the bank side also needs to equal $250,000 because we're creating all this extraneous work for ourselves. And that's hence what I think I brought up before, that like sometimes we have false matches. Well, that is one of the problems that while we're creating the false matches, because the batches on our general ledger side doesn't match what we're sending over to the bank. And so the way that we have the system program now, or we're working on getting the system program, is so that both sides match. Does that make sense?
Well,
or if not, I'll try to delve a little bit deeper into it.
I don't want to drag the precious time we have down this rabbit hole, other than to say, if it was my $14 million, system problems aside, I would know what it is, and I would know whether that money came into the county or was spent by the county. I don't know whether this is on the receipt or disbursement side or transfers. I don't know what it is, but I would have somebody at least being able to tell me, don't worry, we got the money we were entitled to, or we don't know where it is. Maybe it was misappropriated. I don't have a clue from your explanation whether the county has. I understand there's a reconciliation problem, but it's far more important to me to understand whether $14 million of the county's money, whether we have an idea whether it was collected or spent or whatever type of transaction it was. If I knew that, I'd have some comfort while the system problems get straightened out. If we simply don't know, which was our case with the $2 million, we came ultimately to the conclusion, we reconciled it to death. It stayed the same for months and years. We don't know what happened to it, but we were ready to write it off. If we have another $14 million that's in that category, then I have a level of a serious level of concern.
Yes, understood.
Let me follow up because like Keith, I thought we had a $2 million issue that's lasted for decades. You know, it's a long time. And we were just trying to see if we could reconcile that. And then at the state audit meeting, for the first time, I hear that there's some larger amount that has appeared. First of all, my question, Lee, is that a recent, or is that something that was discovered that occurred a long time ago?
No, it occurred in 2020.
Okay.
In the year that they were reconciling, correct.
Okay, so and I was told after the meeting when I asked questions that it was simply a matter of looking for that our fiscal department was comfortable that there was no more money missing, that it was simply trying to gather the receipts or whatever to give to the auditor to show that in fact it was just they just didn't have all the information. Was that correct or not correct?
No, that is correct, because we're still not there because the main account is what's not reconciled. So we have 3 accounts that we need to reconcile back through February of 2020.
But my question is following up on Keith's, which is, are we missing another $14 million on top of the 2 million or not?
I would say we are not missing an additional $14 million. We just have to identify where the what should be posted versus what should be unposted and how to post the transactions. When I say,
do you know what category of transactions these are, or from what department? Do we have that level of visibility?
No, we can probably tie it down to an account, which is the key main operating account. That's what we can tie it down to.
Okay, well, and I don't want to necessarily take up all the committee's time, although in my view, this is an audit committee issue, but I would like you, Lee, to set up a meeting with me and Mike Chambers, maybe Walter, maybe bring Keith in because I'm not I don't know auditing. If Trevor, you want to be there, but I want to find out where we are. I want to understand better, what's going on with this $14 million.
Gotcha. You said Mike, Keith, Trevor. I'm sorry, who else?
Walter and Chambers.
Okay.
And I'd like to be there too.
Oh, I thought you said Monica, right, okay. That's-
Monica's fine.
I was looking for the audit committee members from your side, okay.
Yeah, I don't think, at least at the moment, I don't think we have to involve all the audit members,
Okay,
including right now, but
Yeah, and you don't
like
want
to-
to, because that would be a meeting.
yeah, well,
gotcha. Will do.
So
Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't want to harp on this. I don't want to continue because I know we have to get on with the rest of the agenda, but I think going back to just Keith's comment, I think what would be helpful for the audit committee to understand at the end of this discussion is if there is a $14 million bank reconciliation issue, that means that, and I believe it was the bank balances were higher than the book balances, then that means that my understanding then would be that the financial statements are overstated. So if that's the case, that would be helpful for the audit committee to understand and know, are the financial statements cash balances overstated in the last financial report, the 2020 audit report that we received.
Got it, okay.
well,
And
if what you're saying is right, if it was the bank statement was 14 million more than our books.
no, I said.
Or I'm sorry,
so-
I think it was I misstated. I believe it was $14 million less than our books. So I
Okay.
think the books, if that's the case, then the books, financial statements would be overstated. And there would have to be an adjustment to the financial statements. And I don't know that those were made as part of the audit. I don't know the answer to that question. Were the statements adjusted to match the bank, or are the financial statements overstated?
It's my understanding that the auditors adjust the financial statements to get it to a number that's closer to the bank. That in
Hence-
historically,
Right, and then they
So the
make. a note.
statements were adjusted. I just didn't recall that. That would be
Yeah.
helpful to just understand as part of this process. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment?
sure.
So I just want to make sure we all understand the levels of responsibility. So the committee, we have oversight over internal audit. Internal audit through Monica and her staff are responsible for doing the internal audit evaluations, including bank reconciliations. So this is an open item for internal audit to keep following up to ensure that the appropriate department, meaning the fiscal office, is managing this. But ultimately, the audit committee is not managing the reconciliation of bank accounts. We are just the oversight to make sure that that open item gets addressed from the internal audit perspective. So we can't designate resources, consultants, or whatever to get the job done. I suspect that's Mike Chambers's role to make sure that there's a path forward to get this done in a reasonable time frame.
Thank you, Sal.
Sal, let me jump in on this. You know, I'm staying quiet here. Believe me, this is a priority to us. I believe in the team I have. I'm not going to go through all the nuances, the new systems, the people making error entries backwards and forwards. You know, we're working through all of that. But one thing we are doing is we're fixing current as well as we're going back. We're working both ways right now, and we're getting close. And I am on top of it, and we'll get to this, but we will address it. I'm offering to hire whatever we need to do. We were trying to bring additional staff on, and unfortunately our contract to hire temporary employees had expired. So we're getting there. This is a priority, and we'll get it straightened out.
So my last, and I want to get back to the agenda. So Lee, I think in your presentation, you kept talking about reconciling 2020. You're going back to 2020.
Correct, because, yeah, so that's where the item is from. So the item occurred in 2020. I believe if it was July of 2020. So because we had said that we had reconciled all the way through, you know, all of our accounts at some point through December of 2020, and then at that point, we were doing the audit, we had reconciled, consider ourselves reconciled, basically all but one account, which was the key main account, through the current period, which at that time was like August of 2021. When the auditors discovered the error or the reconciliation item, that meant we had to, if we're showing it as reconciled, that means we had to go back and manually, because again, we're relying on the systems, we had to go back and manually reconcile all the way back through all of 2020 when we switched over to the new systems, because we were reconciled through 2019. The auditors reviewed that, they were fine with that. It's when we got to 2020, that's where the issue arose. First of all, we were already behind on reconciling our bank rec, but then if I'm sure everybody remembers that we were having problems even getting reports out of the system. So we were manually doing reconciliations, but then we were also kind of trying to rely on the system as well. So that's why I had the team go back and manually reconcile all of 2020 again through December of 2021.
Does the team have to redo the 2021 reconciliations also? Maybe like
Correct. Most of the 2021 reconciliations have been manually reconciled as well, but the major accounts, which are 3, they still have to manually reconcile all of 2020 and manually reconcile all of 2021. Correct. For 3 accounts.
Okay, any other questions on the reconciliation? Okay, so I guess one of the follow-ups is the meeting that the county executive had requested to be scheduled. So
yep.
Here's where I'm gonna start bouncing around just a tad, but I'm gonna avoid D just for a second. E, is there a quick update on the external auditor transition update? Is there just a quick update?
Lee, that would be your item.
The external audit. Yeah. For our external auditors meeting, we've had a couple meetings with the external auditors now. We are on track to be, Monica's sat in on those meetings as well. We've provided the information. We're on track to finish their audit on time, which is May 30th. And then to have the financial statements issued by mid-June. And that LGS has also stated that we're on target with their deliverables as well to get the financial statements completed.
This issue with the cash reconciliations isn't going to delay that?
So
not at the moment,
right?
Because right now they're CHS is doing reverse. They're actually doing the federal schedule right now. They have not started the audit of the financials. They'll do that on the back end. And so hopefully by that time, Lee and her team will have we're trying to hopefully be very positive that they'll have the resources and they will have gotten the reconciliations done. But if those reconciliations are not done, that would be something that does hold up the audit.
So any other questions on the audit transition? Okay, so I'll do item F and G pretty quickly. So so one of the responsibilities of the audit committee is to, I use my terminology, kind of oversee the annual financial audit for the county. So I just want to have it reflected in the minutes that we had a couple of meetings. They weren't our meetings, but they were the meetings of the auditors. But I want to reflect it in the minutes that we actually attended those. So there was a meeting occurred on January 11th of 2022 at 9 o'clock with the Auditor State's Office to conduct a post-audit meeting for the 2020 audit. I think I have my years correct. And all committee members were present. And then item G, I think this is supposed to be 2021 financial statements, but we had a meeting occurred on February 2nd of 2022 at 9 a.m. This is the pre-audit meeting with Clark Schaefer and Hackett for the 2021 financial statements, and all committee members were present except Keith. So I just want to have that reflected in the minutes. On I'm gonna pass over item H and I, if I may for now. And I'm gonna unfortunately pass over J. I'm gonna put that at the end, if that's okay with everybody. So under the other business, confirm independence of audit personnel. So one of the responsibilities of the audit committee is to, I guess, ensure that Monica has done her due diligence to ensure that all the members of her staff are truly independent based upon the auditing standards. So Monica, you want to just give an update on this?
Yes, all staff have completed the required form for independence. There were no issues to report.
Okay. Do we need to do anything formally on this?
You do not.
Okay. Item B, the resident member. So this is us, the audit committee members, completing their independence disclosure statements and submitting them to the Inspector General, which I believe everybody has done. So I just want to thank everybody for getting that form in place.
And there were no disclosures that were of concern.
Okay. Item C. This is the discussion on the department's annual performance process. So again, I think as a audit committee, we need to make sure that the evaluations and the goal setting for the internal audit department has transpired. So Monica, you want to give an update on the staff and where you stand with your staff?
Yes, so all performance reviews have been completed and shared with each staff member. Goals have been set for 2022. I mean, yeah, we're in 2022 for 2022, but of course will be subject to any revisions that come, because typically the staff set their goals based upon some of my goals, which is on the agenda to be approved. But for the most part, those goals have been established for the team for 2022. All performance appraisals have been done. We have no issues or concerns relative to performance.
Okay. Any questions on the department's evaluation? Item C. All right. So item D, the Director of Audit Annual Performance. So there's two items here, the 2021 Director Self-Evaluation. So Monica sent her self-evaluation to the Audit Committee a couple of weeks ago, I believe. And so Monica, we talked a little bit about the process that we will go through to complete our portion of the evaluation. But I do want to, I think, spend some time at this meeting reviewing and approving Monica's proposed goals for 2022, so she can kind of get going with them. So you want to kind of give a brief overview on this?
Sure. Let me share my screen real quick. I can't find my screen. I do apologize. I'm just gonna, if you guys have your meeting, I'll just go over them really quickly.
Do you want me to share my screen, Monica? I have it up on a screen.
Oh, yeah. Well, are you able to do that?
Is this,
Hold on.
is this what you're trying to share?
Yes. Yep. That's, oh, no. That is, yes, that's the goals. Yes. Thank you very much, Yvette. So basically, some of them are very similar to the ones for 2021. We started off by saying we would develop and establish a consistent mechanism to obtain and document feedback. So this is where we're going to really start to do our surveys, but do it a little bit more consistently and formally, and report those results as part of our KPI. You know, we did establish, our goal last year was to establish some KPIs. This is another KPI that we'd like to establish. So we put it on here for a goal for this year to really develop and establish a consistent mechanism to obtain and document feedback from process owners for each engagement and key stakeholders annually by no later than December 31st of 2022. The next one is monitoring timely and appropriate resolution of audit findings through consistent use of the established issue resolution process as evidenced by semi-annual updates, one of which would be at this meeting. The one at this meeting actually should have occurred the end of December. It was on the agenda but got pushed. But each June, the second quarter and the fourth quarter, you should be receiving updates including summary reporting on our resolution, or really the management's resolution, and our follow-up of the issues that are presented through our audits. And then the third one is achieving an audit completion rate of at least 70%. That has moved up from 65%, giving us a little bit more stretch. We actually did really great last year on this. But again, just wanted to level set and do 70%, which was an improvement of 5% from last year's goal. Developing cohesive relationships throughout the organization and a rapport with council members. I think this continues to be relevant and very impactful as we seek to establish internal audit as an internal resource for everyone, including council members. So that's back on here again. It was here last year. And then the last one is ensure the timely resolution of the following items from the external quality peer review. And those specific items are the ones that were denoted as DIA management response ones, which is the ones that the DIA department controls. There were others for the executive as well as for the audit. But in terms of my ability to control, I just wanted to put it in the realm in which the department and I had the control over those, which is the ones that are for DIA management response.
Okay. So any questions? Are these goals specific enough to the audit committee members? Any additional questions, comments, requests? Okay, so a motion to approve, I think is in order, right? We want to approve these, Monica?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
So we
moved.
need okay, so all in favor of approving the 2022 goals for the Director of Internal Audit as presented today, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, if you will, can I get a confirmation on who moved and who seconded?
That was Keith and I seconded it, Mike.
Thank you.
I think the next item we can get through pretty quickly too. So this is simply just scheduling the updated council. So again, we've established a responsibility to communicate to the county council the work of the audit committee as well as the internal audit department to reflect, compliance and progress within both areas. So I think this is just to discuss the timing of that, Monica, if I understand.
Correct. And I have talked with Trevor in regards to this. There is a new chair of that committee. So what has been recommended is that I reach out to that committee chair within another month or so to set the time. And we're still going to try to aim for the timing which we had previously. Originally, I think that timing typically is in the June, July timeframe. We did do it last year in September because of an issue with my mother. They were gracious enough to reschedule us. And so we will be still shooting for that same time frame of June, July, but I will not know for certain the exact time frame until I reach out to the committee chair. And, following the recommendation of Trevor, won't be doing that for a couple of months.
Okay. Thank you on that one. Sorry. Okay. So I'm hoping these other items we can get through pretty quickly regarding the audit plan for 2020. Although I hate to rush through the audit plan, although we did talk about it at the last meeting, but I think it's important to get the formal approval on these items so we can get the internal audit department going on these. So Monica, you want to
Okay.
kind of F, G, and H?
Okay, so F, G, and H. So I sent to you the audit plan report for your review. A couple of items that I just want to go over really quickly as a part of F, G, and H, and that's the prior 2021 engagements where we stand with that. I am pleased to say that the department completed 92% of the audit plan last year, which resulted in, as you know, there were 22 total engagements. We released a total of 12 of those engagements. There's one engagement that is still in progress, that is the CCOMS one. And there was one engagement that was removed trying to remember which one was that. I'll come back to that. And then there was a deferred on hold. There was one, and that is the DSAS one. So in total, we pretty much completed all but 2 engagements from last year. The specific, we also included in that is the peer review, which was significant. And just to note that peer review came out pretty well, meeting all standards. The audits planned for 2021 were the DCFS, JFS benefits, Sheriff's Office 2021 tracker update, June 30th for 2021 tracker for December 31st. All of those have been completed or released. So we then have some utilization. The staff's utilization last year was at 57%, where max is 60%. In terms of coverage, and this is something that was on the agenda on a follow-up. So we did a calculation of audit coverage in terms of overall how much our audit plan covers the complete audit universe. For 2021, that overall coverage was 12%. The coverage of high risk is 30%. So we are, covering just about 1/3 of the high risk. Would really like to be able to cover 100%, which gets me to, there was an item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, that I think we do need to cover. It was also part of the recommendations for the peer review, is that we establish an audit coverage strategy. And I highlighted on page 7 of the report the language that for the recommendation is that we follow what we call the cyclical model as a coverage strategy. We have done this in prior years. It has been in report in prior years, but as I recall, the peer reviewers wanted the committee to actually spend some time, just in consideration of this and document your formal approval of that coverage strategy. What that cyclical model is it establishes an audit cycle based on an assessment of the inherent risk and control environment of the auditable entities and its constituent elements. Thus, the higher the risk rated auditable entities may be subject to an annual audit. So basically, when we do our risk assessment, we do risk assess from high to low. And what the cyclical method says is that you will try to cover your full spectrum within a 3 to 5 year period. And they recommend that high risk be covered every year, medium risk entities be subject to an audit every 2 or 3 years, and lower risk rated entities be subject to an audit every 4 years. Irrespective of the coverage strategy, professional practice necessitates the design of an audit plan that covers all areas within a 3 to 5 year period. We are moving towards that. As you can see, for right now, the current resources we have, we're only able to get, 12% of the full spectrum of, and that's the adjusted. So that's what the audit, the revised audit justification memo taken into consideration. So we are trying to get to a 3 to 5 year plan. We don't currently have resources to do that, but we're trying to do the best that we can. However, we will need a formal vote to be taken on the use of the cyclical method for a coverage strategy, which again will provide us with a coverage strategy to cover everything within a 5 year period, with high risk being annual, medium risk being 2 to 3 years, and low risk being every 4 years. Additionally, just as a reminder, we use a continuous process for follow-ups now. So we don't do follow-up reports anymore. And that's through our issue tracking. And that's also part of our responsibilities. So that would be included, as part of our overall coverage strategy. That is the update from the report. I can move on to the audit plan for approval if there are not any questions in that. And if you want to wait to the end to take the vote.
Well, let me, while I pressure in my head, let me do the approval for I'm assuming the frequency guide is similar to the cyclical.
Right, so there are different methodologies. One is the cyclical method. The other is just a risk-based approach, which cyclical method does take into account risk-based. So it's a hybrid of that. And then there's another one that's a hybrid where it's both the risk and the cyclical model. The recommended strategy, one that most use, is the cyclical.
Okay, and that's what you recommend in the audit committee?
That is correct. That's what we've been utilizing since I have become the director.
Okay, so this is just more of a formal approval of something that's been in place.
Correct.
Internal audit. Okay. So
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the cyclical method for the
Audit coverage strategy.
audit coverage strategy as proposed by the director. Sal's lips move, but I don't think we can hear him.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all right. So all in favor of approving the proposed cyclical method for the frequency of audits, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So this satisfies one of the recommendations of the external peer reviewers, correct?
Correct.
It's formal approval of it. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So yeah, you want to go to the audit plan?
Okay. So we did get a tentatively, you approved a tentative audit plan in December, and we just have updated that plan. And first I'm trying to get to it. Okay. It's in mine. So in the audit plan report, but then I also sent a separate item just to make it easier for the committee. But basically what we have is we have the audits that were carried over, which this year there were only 2 audits carried over, which is really great. And we are basically finished with the Kyogre emergency one. That report should be out to you hopefully by the end of the week. We're working on some minor management comment revisions. So that would be finished, but it also includes us continuing the review of the senior adult services contracting process, which has been on hold because they requested that we do our field work for their financial part in April. So then we also have new planned audits for 2022. We have the payroll process review, which we are currently working right now. We have on here the items highlighted in yellow on this report are ones in which we are going to be recommending be either removed from the plan or deferred to another year because of resources. But on here you do have sanitary revenues and expenditures. You also have jail operations compliance. You have IT controls review. You have facilities revenue and receivables. You have motor vehicle, real property, human resources compliance audit, employee recruitment, hiring and retention, bank reconciliation process, OBM, encumbrance process, grants management and funding. And you have the sheriff law enforcement, issue tracker, risk assessment, and the QAIP process. All of those items are high risk. We also have as a contingency audit, the ethics review that was also recommended by our peer reviewers as a high risk item that we should include. A discussion last time led to that being contingency, and I think we are going to be waiting for the IG presentation before the committee makes a decision on that. In terms of consulting services, we have ERP implementation, the DIA project excellence, and the management request. So we are recommending that the grants management and funding, as well as the sanitary revenues and expenditures, They are high-risk items. Unfortunately, do not have enough resources to cover them as we would like to, in compliance with our cyclical model, which says we cover all high risk on an annual basis. I did provide to you a resource plan that shows you what our resources are versus what the plan is. And there was a shortage of resources of over 2,000 hours. This will give us back some of those hours. Also, just to note, the jail operations and compliance review was removed at the request of the audit committee last time due to some other external work currently being done by other independent agencies on that area. And then just as a note, the IT general controls review, that is actually going to be outsourced. There will be some work done internally to support it. However, for the bulk of it, the 650 hours will be outsourced. We are currently in the process of doing our RFP for that. And then the other audit that does not get included in our time resources is the ERP implementation. What that is, just to remind the committee again, is a system, a post-implementation review. Some of the issues and concerns that you're seeing with the bank reconciliation is what a post-system implementation review is designed to identify before you have them. And so we've been kind of putting this down the road, deferring it, trying to wait for ERP to finish being implemented fully, and also to get the external resources that are needed, because we do not have that amount of resource currently in our budget to get an IT resource that would be needed to perform that review. So that is the presented plan. Are there any questions or concerns?
So I want to make just a couple comments to the audit committee members. And Monica, thanks for putting this together. So everything that is unhighlighted on this, you have hours, your manpower utilization analysis reflects that in a perfect world, everything that is unhighlighted should get done by the end of this year or something like that, correct?
Correct. Now, we've not put together a schedule. That's what prevented CCOMs from being done last year. They requested that it be done in October. With the number of hours, we could not finish it by 12/31. So we haven't put together a schedule because we don't have a formal plan, but buying someone saying they don't want us to audit them at a certain time, that would push us beyond the 12/31. All of these should be completed by our resource hours within the year.
Okay, so the current makeup of the internal audit staff plus the hiring of the external consultant would give you
Correct.
hours to complete. Okay. And the other thing I think probably pointed this out last time to our committee members, but there is 220 hours in here for internal audit to get involved with the bank reconciliation process. So just note that I think there's some discussion about what role we would have or internal audit would have. So there are some hours in here for that. So any other questions on the 2022 audit plan from the audit committee members? Okay. Just one brief comments on the agenda. This is this Benford audit. So I want to have this one last conversation in regards to this. So prior audit committees had decided, because of the risk associated with duplicate payments and other issues in the accounts payable area, that they had wanted the Benford audit to be part of the audit plan every year, just to be every year, because obviously there's payments that are occurring every year. When internal audit completed the audit a couple of years ago, Monica, I can't remember what year it was completed. There were a series of recommendations and then responses from management where fiscal was going to be implementing a number of items that would help them detect duplicate payments. And it's my understanding that fiscal has not implemented those tools at this particular point in time. So I just want to make sure that the current audit committee members are comfortable enough with that to not have it added as an item annually in the audit plan. So just
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, so the benefit audit had been done in the past previously. The audits that were completed before we completed the work we completed last year, there were no significant findings to the benefit if you're doing just the benefits work. Last year, when we did the audit, we revised the audit plan to not just include benefits, but to include fraud detection of other, use other fraud techniques in identifying fraud in that process. We came up with some findings. In regards to the benefit, one of those was that the fiscal department could do either implement software or could hire a third-party independent recovery expert, which is standard in the industry, to recover that. They elected to put that tool into play. They do not currently have that tool. I just want to be clear that the audit that we did was not a full benefit audit as was requested previously. The previous benefit audits did not result in any significant findings. If the committee wishes us to continue to do that, my recommendation would be that it would be a fraud payroll review and not just, a fraud AP review and not just a benefit audit.
So it's not a 2022 audit plan, and there's quite frankly a lot of items in it, might be higher risk items in it 20. So just out for conversation. If not, then we just go ahead and approve the 2022 audit plan as presented.
Well, before we leave that, maybe Mike or somebody else could comment on if recommendations were made and have not been implemented. Is it the intention to do so, and it's resource constraint, or were there concerns about those recommendations that we don't want to move forward with the implementation?
My understanding, and I have had a conversation with Lee Tucker, who was the key respondent to a lot of the action items that were reported on that report last year, is that they do intend to implement. That is going to be tracked through our issue tracking process, where Catherine will be the liaison and following up as appropriate with that. Because it was last year that we just did that, I'm not sure if they're actually out of their runway of time for that right now, but I do know, as you have heard, that fiscal has been very focused on some other key items of priority. But my understanding is that all recommendations will be resolved as per the report.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So no other further conversation. We need do we approve the 2022?
You need to approve the plan.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the 2022 audit plan as presented by Monica during this particular meeting, or the revised 2022 audit plan. All in favor of approving or we need a second?
Second.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the 2022 audit plan as presented today by Monica and her team, say aye.
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 Okay. Monica, anything under I and J that you want to report quickly to us?
The semi-annual issue update. Catherine has been diligent.
I and J under new business. I just want to.
Under new business. Sorry.
Current engagements and the emerging risks.
Yeah, I think I can't pretty much give you an update on the current engagements. We've started the one thing I didn't say, we started real property as well. So one thing that is great is that we're able to start our plan earlier because we don't have a lot of carryover. So we've already started working on a good amount of plan items. We're on track, no issues. That you get a monthly report that will keep you up to date with that as well. So I won't spend any more time on that. And then for Jay, there is, I just want to bring to the audit committee's attention that there are some significant areas of payroll controls that I've been spending quite a bit of time. And what I try to do is bring items, up to this committee that you should put on your radar in terms of risk. They are rolling out and going live with the payroll system. We are working very diligently, Lee Tucker, myself, and other people within the IT team to ensure a smooth rollout. I am working hand in hand to try to get controls in place prior to the rollout as quickly as we can. Some of them will probably exceed the rollout, the actual go live date, but just wanted to bring up that there are a number of concerns. There might be a need later on, I think, for us this year to actually do a full payroll review once the system has been fully implemented, but I will bring that back to you at that time. But right now it is a high risk item that's on my radar that I've been spending quite a lot of time addressing multiple payroll issues, and I think it may need a full review.
Okay. Any questions for Monica on that topic? Okay, so let's, we might even get through a lot of this. So let me go back to item D under old business. So this is the Audit Committee Jurisdictional Subcommittee update. I know there's been some work by the committee, but if somebody wants to just give a brief update as to what's transpired and what next steps are.
Mark, would you do the honors, please?
Yes, we met with Yvette to discuss, further develop the concerns. And we've started working with the fiscal office to identify where these relationships are formed by agreement or through appropriation or some combination of the two. And we're trying to fill in the gaps. So we're working away at it. We're not ready to really present anything today, but I think we have a path forward.
Okay. So we have H, I, and J. Monica, can we push off H to the next meeting, or can we do that pretty quickly?
I mean, we've kind of really covered it already. I just need to work with the law department to see what pathway there is for revision to the county. Yeah, to see, that's the one where I'm going to work with law to see what pathway there is for council to permanently to get a more definitive approach to the restricted assets. The executive order in place right now is great, but I think we wanted something with a little bit more permanency. And so I'll be working with law and I'll bring that back to you for that. And so that would be appropriate because next meeting is where we also do any recommendations for revised charter revisions. So I'll bring that to you at that time. And then
so I want to just add a point to the audit committee members. So we had some discussion previously about the need to change the county charter in regards to this. But I think through the work that's been done through the executive order issued by the county executive and potentially some discussion of having the county council issue something similar, if I'm using the right terminology, that
correct.
Both of those steps may be adequate enough to not require or have us consider the recommendation to change the county charter.
Correct.
Do I have that correctly summarized?
That is correct.
Okay. And obviously both of those steps, well, I shouldn't speak for, one of them's already done, and I don't know to what extent the county council may be willing to entertain that, but both of those steps would certainly be much easier than trying to change the county charter in regards to this. So, okay. So just want to add more words to that. So we can either do I or J. Monica, you want to do J? And
I would prefer to do J since we have those people and they've been holding around.
Okay. So just a couple words and I'll hand that off, I guess, maybe to Lee. But so we had discussion with the Auditor State's Office at the last meeting about at the Auditor State's Office in the post-audit meeting regarding the findings actually contained within the audit report. In addition to that, they issued a series of management letter comments, which I'm not sure we went over at the last meeting. What Monica is presenting here, this is a document that we had created a few years ago that kind of keeps track numerically of all of the findings from year to year for the audit. And for me, one of the more important items on here is the number of years that some of these findings have been reflected in the audit report. So,
Mhm.
you know, it would certainly reflect to me that there should be efforts that need to be done by the county to resolve these issues, particularly if they're repeat items from year to year. I mean, it's, you know, if something happens new and you're just not aware of it, I guess that's one issue. But if they're been reported to you for the last 3 years, you would, you know, one would certainly hope that these issues would have been resolved by now. So,
Right. Mhm.
so with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Lee, and Lee, good luck with how you unhandle this.
All right, we will go one by one. I will try to get through this very quickly. We're starting with, what are we starting with? The schedule of findings, I'm assuming. So for the unreconciled book over bank balance, we talked about that. So I'm gonna not talk about that again because we just addressed that, and the updates are pretty much what I've given you guys. So we will be providing another update. I will send an email out to the whole committee once we have the meeting that Armin has requested on the path forward. The second finding, the second, third, and fourth finding, well, I'm sorry. So the second, second, third, and fourth finding, Walt will be responding to on behalf of HHS from a, because it's a financial perspective, but it's Walt also has the familiarity, and he's spoken with Kathy regarding the comment. So Walt, I'll turn it over to you for number 2.
Lee, I think Walter had it step out for a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, I will read it on behalf of, and I'll try to answer questions that the committee may have. So for number 2, the finding was, is the cost claim to incorrect cost pools. We've had this finding a couple different times, and we thought the issue was corrected for 2020, but I believe from Walt's perspective, the share of the cost pool, we made the correction, but I think it was too late to become effective for all of 2020. So basically the response was that we're going to put all the new codes in the CFA system, and we review the mapping codes to make sure that the programs are claimed correctly. So the issue has been corrected. It's just that when they made the corrections for 19, it wasn't done in time to reflect for the whole year of 2020. There were still some issues towards the beginning of the period. Number 3, the difference between the cost allocation plan and the loss and accounting system. The official response was going forward that we will make sure that all cap adjustments are brought forward and added to the current cost allocation plan and not adjusted directly to the accounting system. So the issue with that is that in 20, again, they thought this issue was resolved for 2020, but it hadn't been, because at the end of the year, we brought the adjustments over into the accounting system instead of adding the corrections to the, adding the adjustments forward into the current cost allocation plan. So there should be no issues for 2021 because that was actually corrected in 2022, just, I'm sorry, in 2020, just not in time for the whole year. Is there any questions that I need to follow up with from the committee regarding the cost allocation plan? Okay. Moving on to the random moment sampling, the official response for that is, let me see. The official response for that is that the new RMS timeframe that allows 48 hours to validate the RMS as opposed to 24-hour timeframe that was prior to 2020 should help with the RMS issues. However, I don't know if the problem will ever be completely alleviated due to the timing of like vacations, et cetera, where if the supervisor is out and the secondary supervisor is out, these items may not be approved within the window that the state has established for within the requisite 48 hours. But the cases all get approved and reviewed, but it's just, I guess, an issue of timing when there's staff absences. And they are working on getting a full staff because, you know, HHS at this point has had some staffing vacancies. So hopefully the fulfilling of the staffing vacancies will also help. Is there any issues with that one? Or any further questions regarding the RMS issue? Okay. The next issue was with the Adams Board. And the Adams, for the first issue, number 4, let me see. This one was a validation issue. The Adams Board felt like they had properly checked for suspended or debarred vendors in the SAM system. They just didn't have any proof that they had went to the SAM site to check for this validation. So going forward, they're going to make sure that they print out, make a copy that and their validation process. So they're going to do screenshots that to prove that they went to the SAM's site to verify the vendor had not been suspended or debarred, and they'll keep that with their packet going forward. The next one is also for the Adams Board, where the Adams Board for a particular grantee, they had not, they didn't have the financial statements for the grants for this vendor. They have been notified of the issue, and they will assure that they receive audited financial reports and records and financial statements from all subrecipients whose expenditures are more than $750,000, and they will keep those with their files and records as well going forward. Item number 6, that's back to the SNAP program. For this one, there's a little bit of, I think there was a little bit of confusion on the process. So at the beginning of the year, Public Works and the Department of Information Technology, they're going to provide copies in advance of all chargebacks. They currently do that now, but they're going to make sure that Kathy and HHS will make sure that she has validated and signed off on the approvals of the chargebacks versus just receiving the information and saying that that's acceptable. She's going to send some type of validation that she agrees to the chargebacks, or if she, I guess it'll be a negative confirmation. If she has any issues with the chargeback, we just need to implement that into our process. Is there any questions around the chargebacks on number 6? Number 7, the question was around review and approval of grant expenditures. Same thing with the chargebacks. They're going to make sure, HHS will make sure that going forward that they share with their grantee, their person responsible for monitoring the grants, the chargebacks at the beginning of the year. And if there's any issues, they will notify Public Works in advance that there's issues with the chargebacks. Otherwise, they're confirming that they agree with the chargebacks going forward. Number 8, WIOA will make sure that they maintain all source documents used in the determination of their grant eligibility program. They didn't have some, they were missing some documents, but they will going forward, they are aware of what those documents are, and make sure that they keep track of all their youth participants and their eligibility for that. And the last finding was a finding for recovery. We are still working through that issue with the former employee. We're trying to work with something through a law department to agree to a payback of the overpaid funds of $13,000. HR has implemented some new processes to help identify there were some staff absences. So some things due to human error, some things have fallen through the crack, but we're just trying to get that recovery in place at this point. Are there any questions regarding the recovery?
Leah, this is Trevor. I have one on that. Is there a timetable of when we have to have a payment plan in place, or like, this has been kind of lingering for a while? What
Yeah,
kind of timetable are we under?
we were working on getting something in place by last Friday, and we're still working on that. The auditor of state has been kind enough to grant us a little additional time so that it won't become this finding. So once we have something in place from the previous employee, and we just came up with a new offer. The law director is working on that to get that approved. But as soon as possible, Trevor, is the short answer to that. They want it as soon as possible, but they know that we're working on it. We've kept them abreast, and they have agreed to allow us this additional time to get the recovery made.
Has the former employee yet agreed to the payback period?
So the initial payback period was 10 years.
Right.
And he said that due to his financial circumstances, that wasn't long enough. So we proposed 15 years. The auditor of state sounds like this shouldn't be a problem either.
Lee, Greg, who sent me an email this morning, they've not actually given that to him yet, but they will be working. We're working with the prosecutor's office to extend that to him. So
Okay.
they haven't done it yet.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So once we hear back from them, we'll have more information. So hopefully they're amenable to that as well.
Okay, but we don't know that yet if they agreed to the
No.
15.
Okay. Right.
Oh, no, the auditor of state has. They said that
right.
we can offer.
Offer.
15
We don't
as
know.
we did
Yeah.
in the Jim Hayes situation. So we're good with that. The legal just has not offered it to Mr. Waller yet.
Right. So we don't know if he will approve it. If Mr. Waller is amenable to that additional 5-year extension on top of what we already offered them, then we can go back and report it to the state, and then we'll be squared away.
Yeah, it only drops his payment by $36. So we're not quite sure if he'll accept that or not.
So I just a couple follow-up questions. Has the Auditor State's office released your 2020 audit, or are they still holding it based upon the resolution of this?
They're still holding it based upon the resolution.
Okay, and how is it affecting any bond deals or anything else for the county then?
Well, Mike can speak to that, but we don't have anything in the progress, do we, Mike, that is impacting? Because I know a lot of times they want us to have like a current.
No, we actually released our draft audit, a few months ago, and we were able to get our Indians deal done. But we'll come into play with the jail and things like that in the future. But I would assume we'll have it resolved by then.
Okay.
So no impact right now.
And so let me say this: the auditor of state. Go ahead.
Guardian's deal.
The auditor of state is really holding back, giving us
Guardians,
an
yes.
opportunity to resolve this before they have to issue the recovery. They could have issued the report last week, but they would have also had to issue the recovery. So they're just trying to give us as much time as possible to resolve this so that it's not an issue for recovery. Because if so, they would need to assign joint and several liability, and that's a huge issue and concern right now.
Okay.
Just a quick question. I mean, this is such a relatively minor amount of dollars to be, holding everything up the way that it does. Does this former employee have leverage to reject a 10-year payment plan? I mean, it just, to me, just doesn't, that's pretty generous.
Right. Yeah, in theory, right. And so in
exists
theory, if he rejects the plan, then the auditor will issue the finding for recovery, and then we have some legal
We'll have the legal standing that it would
Right,
be
to go
needed to
after him.
pursue him officially.
And
it'll just go-
why don't we want the auditor of state to do that?
Well, the finding for recovery is because it assigns liability for this overpayment to not only the employee, but also to the employee that received the overpayment, but also some
It
other
may.
folks at the count. It could.
It may.
Yeah, it could.
We're not sure yet. So there are just some stipulations around the final recovery, which is why the auditor of state is holding up the report, the audit report. And from a legal perspective, it's just better for all parties that if they don't have to issue this recovery. But they're really working to try to, and I'm trying not to say as much because it may, be able to.
Okay, all right, I get it. We have to spend more time on it.
Monica, I just want to say thank you for your help on this, because I do think that if the former employee rejects a 15-year repayment plan, and there's a chance that current county employees would be responsible to pay this back, I just completely disagree with that. And I'm not sure how that could even be possible. And I think I have some other theories on why it's possible this year, but I'm not going to go into that. But I do appreciate your work on this, Monica, and trying to ensure it's on the former employee's responsibility to pay it back. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm in full agreement that this particular part of the law, which I am being told by order of state is the law, is just really archaic and very much different. But it is what they're saying is the law. So we're just going to do the best we can to alleviate whatever ramifications would impact people who have diligently done their jobs.
I agree
And
with
Lee, thank you. I know you've been helping too, so thank you. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no problem.
I agree with Trevor and Lee and Monica. If he won't accept the 15 years before we just let it go, we should have Greg Huth and who knows who else make direct contacts and threaten lawsuit.
Armin, I think to add to that too, we might want to elevate it to the county prosecutor as well, because some of his staff is working on this, but I know he's not involved, but maybe that's a conversation we could have as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that also. And I think, there was some benefits to get other people involved with Hay when we had that issue, so.
Yeah, and we did talk to Greg about the possibility of if he did reject this 15-year agreement, could we move forward and turn it over to the prosecutor as well?
I mean, that would be so that's the normal progression. Once it becomes a final recovery item issued by the auditor of state.
No, Monica, I'm talking about even before it's issued.
Okay.
Final.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So we wanted to perhaps have Greg, Greg reach out to him and then, then turn it over to the prosecutor. Again, this is before the final finding for recovery, and kind of say, oh, by the way, we can also prosecute you, have it on.
That's what they're currently doing. So yeah, it is that we have several people from the prosecutor's office working with this right now and making direct contact with them in hopes that we can resolve it before it becomes a final recovery.
I have one last question on the finding. So items 2 through, and it goes back to the color coding, make sure I understand it. So items 2 through 9. So based upon what you know of the findings and the county's implementation of the resolution to the findings, which one of these do you think will not appear in the 2021 financial statements?
Based on timing, number 9 will not, of course, number 10 is a non-issue. So 5, 6, 9 for sure. 2 should not appear again either. So 2, wait a minute, I'm looking. 2.
Now, Lee, just to be clear, which numbering are you going off for? What's on the schedule or what's?
No, the schedule, on the schedule. So 2020-002 should not be on. So these are the things that should not be on there again.
Okay.
Number 3, number 5, 6. And 9 for sure should not be on there. Hopefully number 7 and 8 won't be on there again. I think 4 is going to be something that's continuous. Walt is back on the call, so He's joined us again, but I just think 4 is something that's going to would take a considerable amount of resources not to be on that list again. And I get it wasn't on there in prior years, but it just seems, I don't know how we overcome that. Walt, do you have any buy-in to or anything to add to this is the RMS, Walt?
That's okay. I don't think we need to get into it. So, but
Okay.
So generally, from what you know about these and when the county may have implemented the solution, potentially 5 of these 7 or 8, I don't know how many left. However many, between 2 and 9. Should not be repeated by the auditors as they wrap up the 2021 audit.
Correct. At least 5 of them should not be on the list again.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you want to quickly go through the management letter?
Yeah.
What time?
So for the management letter, the first one is WIOA grant and the timeliness of filing of their quarterly financial certifications. The auditor said that 2 of the 4 quarterly financial reports were submitted late. WIOA disagree with that, and they provided proof that one of the submissions, that was the submission at the first January through March of 2020, was actually submitted on time, and they have a letter where the state had granted, it wasn't due in April, it was due May the 11th. So that was filed on time, and then the second one was not filed on time due to COVID. So going forward, they shouldn't have those issues anymore. Non-compliance issue finding number 2, the amended certificate of estimated resources. We did not subtract out the prior year encumbrances, and we carried that amount forward to the current year without subtracting it out. Going forward, we will make sure that happens, and we did that for 2021, so we're confident that that won't be a repeat finding. And also what we're going to do in fiscal is, and this is effective in 2022, the county will do a quarterly review to ensure that the certificate reflects updated estimated resources that we hadn't been doing that prior to this, and that the appropriations are not exceeding these estimated resources. So because we're implementing this in 2022, that part of the review, hopefully there won't be a repeat finding in 2021, but we kind of reviewed 2021 and we think we're in good shape for that as well. Number 3, adjustments to the federal schedule. Let me see what that one is. It's okay. We came up with a valid, so there might be a little bit of carryover for this from 2021, because effective in 2022, we've developed a process of an additional validation to help ensure that the schedule of the federal expenditures, the CFA report, and the accounting system and all supporting documentations match. But this process will involve a quarterly review of the major programs to ensure that the expenses reported to the grantor and the annual CFA report match, as well as tied to our financial systems. And any variances will be investigated and corrected prior to year end before we close the books. Moving on to the recommendations, the journal entry adjustment segregation of duties. We sent out a reminder that anyone who submits a journal entry and they're a journal entry supervisor, that they cannot approve their own journal entries. But because Infor doesn't have the visibility to allow us to see who approves these journal entries, we needed to send out a reminder, and hopefully that we'll send out reminders periodically. But once they have approved it, we can't unapprove it. So it's just a reminder not to approve your own journal entries. Next one is Sheriff's Civil Account Reconciliation. They have a small balance, and we've asked them or made a suggestion that this is for an outside account, that they perhaps write that amount off. It's been it seems like it's about $13,000, and it was about the same amount last year. I think it changed about $50. They're looking into it. They would like a chance to continue to review their old outstanding items before they make that commitment, because they feel like the new software should help prevent that going forward, but the amount still exists. So I'm not sure if they're going to find it, but they're going to look into it, perhaps doing a write-off. Written policies required by the Uniform Guidance for Federal Programs. The HHS had been using the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Procedure Manual as their their written guidance, and the state said that wasn't sufficient because it didn't cover all federal programs. So we're in the process of helping HHS along with WALT, OBM, to write to draft some new policies to ensure the compliance with the federal guidelines. This issue may be a repeat for 2021 just because we don't have that in place yet. So, and I don't know if we'll have it completed for the audit, but we are working on that policy. Financial reporting and material errors. We will continue to monitor the timing of the goods or services that are received at year end to ensure that we are properly accruing the payables and that any receivables are properly billed out. We have added a new field in 2022 that will allow us to determine what year the services were received or that the billing actually occurred, so that it will allow us for proper matching that will be automated versus a manual process. Hopefully this won't be repeated again in 2021. We're trying to do a better job of monitoring that, but that's what we came up with as a workaround. Sorry, somebody had a question? Oh, okay. One-stop payment process, number 5. There were still, this had come up in a prior year, but we had kind of resolved it, but it came up again about the using pre-numbered receipts and the having gaps between receipts that were accounted for. The taxpayer services has been made aware of this, and the supervisor is going to ensure that they verify that the forms are in sequential order and that any logs are not, or any forms are not tossed, that any voided or unused forms are kept secured and used as part of their reconciliation process for that. And then the next section, after this, that's IT, and Jeremy Mio will be taken over for number 6 through the rest of the items.
Jeremy,
Yep,
you have
this is
3 minutes, buddy.
3 minutes. I'll be quick here.
Or we could put you off to the next meeting, whatever.
I can completely cover these in 3 minutes.
Perfect.
So Jeremy Mio, Information Security Officer for Cuyahoga County. Number 6 there for juvenile court is a longstanding item. It most likely will be a repeat item next this next audit or a verbal. They have been working, they've gotten a third party in, and they've been doing a lot of work. So hopefully, if not this year, next year, that item will fall off. Number 7 for the program change control. These are, as you can see, repeat items for a tremendous amount of years. Some of the newer ERP applications go lives hopefully will resolve a lot of these. We have put in additional controls for as many items as possible with our staffing resources, with everything going live. The one item that might linger around is the real property, but real property is also going live within the next a few years as well. There's a lot of work within that, so I don't want to discuss it in too much detail, but hopefully at least all of the processes will be in place, especially getting new eyes from the new auditors coming in. From the security administration, number 8 as well as number 9. Security administration also is tied into some of our legacy systems, and hopefully those will fall off, as well as some of the newer processes we've put in place with the various recommendations. And number 9, we've put in processes that should not be a repeat item going forward. And those are, I still have 1 minute to spare if there's any questions.
I have a comment. I think this is by far the least amount of comments for IT that I can recall.
Yes, we have cleared many. We usually hover around 9 to 12. And a lot we've been putting in a tremendous amount of work over the past couple of years with all the newer applications and staffing changes and processes. So it's been, a lot's been done, especially throughout the past couple years over the pandemic.
Okay, great. So any other comments and thank you, Jeremy, for your update and for Lee for your update. So any other comments or questions for Lee or Jeremy? All right.
I just have one comment as it relates to juvenile. I just want to say, for this committee's knowledge, that juveniles work that they're doing was the result of the consulting work that we perform, for them and help them get done. So this committee definitely is continuing to impact the organization.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so item 10 under the wrapping it up, the public comment. So I'm assuming anybody from the public has anything you want to comment on unrelated to the agenda. Monica, are you aware of anything?
I'm not aware of anything. I have not received anything.
Okay, perfect. So item 11, that's our next meeting. We're going to do that via Zoom also, I believe.
That would be correct.
Okay. So item 12, adjournment. So we need a motion to adjourn, and we are right at 12 o'clock and we got through the agenda. I can't believe it. So motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. So all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Bye-bye.